who's using it, your base that you're serving, feels appreciated and would want to stick with you, because 120, I'm sorry, I'm more than willing to pay a buck for that. But then again, touching on what the underserved communities cannot afford this, right? And so in as much as, Starlink comes into where we look at the positive and then negative and how it affects the competitiveness on this, it presents a great opportunity for the underserved communities to be connected. So the digital divide that we've seen in our markets is gradually bridging, but they can't afford it. Nonetheless, you look at the fact that Starlink's operationally, when it comes to the underserved communities, is for economic purposes. And let me just touch on it briefly. We have the likes of Zipline, which connects underserved communities with medical supplies, etc. Right? They do need some form of connectivity to be able to do that. With the introduction of Starlink, they will be able to reach more communities there. By doing so, there's an economic aspect that trickles. That's like a ripple effect. So you're connecting these people, they can't afford it, but the business side can afford going into these areas. And so you're looking at so many opportunities coming into these underserved areas. Although from their perspective, they can afford it, but from the business side, these businesses can afford to be in these underserved communities, set up businesses there. Government can even consider, building free zone areas around these underserved communities. And so I think the conversation should not really be looked at from the myself or the individual that can't afford it, and that is in the underserved community, but how this can be a great opportunity for businesses that are in the capital and is, they are not able to expand more, to expand into these underserved communities and build economic growth in these communities.
All right, I'll come back to, but I'll go back to Derek. Derek shook his head in there. I think you saw on the bit of the costs. So before Abubakar comes in, wait, I want Derek to go on this one and let me see. Can the high cost of satellite internet be justified?
After being a year and a half user of Starlink, I can tell you it's justified because rightly, like Francis said, satellite is not for everybody. And so you're talking, I think just 2 days ago, they unveiled a gateway service station in Alaska, and they're talking about the ground station there being able to push a second 10 Gbps. We're talking gigabits per second in an island. That's not cheap investment. And so if you notice, for somebody like me who has been in there for close to 2 years just monitoring how things are playing out, a couple of things I'm saying here is, today, as we're talking this morning, nobody is going to wake up in New York on the regular to say, I'm walking into Best Buy to go and buy Starlink. But here in Ghana, the conversation is going on by the second. And it's going on because there's a need. In America, they're still on the same traditional networks that we're using here. They're all on fiber. But they're not going out to look for Starlink because they don't see it as an alternative. If something is working, if it's not broken, why do I want to fix it? Okay, but over here, it's an active, moving train and a moving conversation for every young person because it's broken. We gather, we talk, we say the nice things, but it all boils down to the quality of experience and the quality of service that we are providing to meet that experience. So there's obviously a gap. And so if you ask me about cost, when I bought my device, I first bought it for, I think it was $1,000. This was in March 2023. I don't know how many people will easily wake up in the morning and give up 15,000 cedis for a kit that they don't know how it's going to work. So it was a bet I took, but I took it because I wanted a certain kind of experience based on what I've heard. And I said, let me just try it. If it fails, it fails. At the end of the day, it's my money. It's not government's budget, so it's my money. So I made this investment, and I've been shooting minimum 250. Sometimes I've gotten up to 400 Mbps at home. And I'm beginning to understand when we say Internet of Things, when we keep talking about the new future, internet has to be like water. It has to be like light. It's water. I go and stand under and bath in the shower. I'm singing. When I'm tired, I turn it off. I shouldn't use it like, hey, you're watching too much Netflix, put it on. That's the experience that you see in almost every Ghanaian home. You are scared that the internet will finish. So she's talking about the lady is talking about 500, 300, but you could even buy what the highest package is. You shoot beyond certain, you use beyond certain data volumes, and then they begin to throttle it. They begin to cap it. What is supposed to be what you're enjoying is beginning not to look like it anymore. On the experience of Starlink, I'll tell you, I have an IPTV in almost every room, and I do almost 2 terabytes on and on just IPTV. So I use internet to watch TV. I threw DSTV away over a year ago because I have 9,000 channels, and I don't care if it's on and I'm sleeping and I left it. I don't care. And that's the kind of experience that if you want to be able to learn, whatever you're using the internet for, it's your business. Whether I'm using it to do social media, whether I'm using it to game, whether I'm using it to have a serious meeting with Mr. Dinsu, it's my business. I determine how I want to use the resource. And so the experience is matching whatever I'm paying, and I'm happy. After paying almost, it used to be $120, it moved to $150, it moved to $200. Then it was moving to $400. I said, hey. Then I switched to Nigeria and I started paying 500 cedis. And now Ghana is on. I've switched a couple of kids back to Ghana because the latency is better, because the ground station is here as well. And so the experience equally changes. But the point for me is I don't mind spending 1,000 cedis just to have excess internet to do. Even if I don't watch it and it's there, I'm okay. It makes me happy. Okay. And so the cost should match the experience, and that's what people are seeing. But if I'm spending, and I've gone to so many people's homes. Yesterday I was in a house in Cantonment, less than 24 hours ago, and this gentleman said, oh, I beg, come and check something for me. When I went, he mentioned an ISP provider's name. He said, yeah, it's on there, I don't want to mention it. And he said, I've had this thing for almost a year. I've paid 1 year, it's supposed to end by the end of the year. Can you change it for me? I want Starlink. And I was like, okay, buy it. And that's the experience that we are getting around. And I think that there's some level of work that we all need to do. So as I say all the nice things about Starlink, we still have existing infrastructure. We still have ISPs that equally, for the want of a better word, Ghanaian companies, I always want to protect them. But I won't protect them at my detriment when I need a thing and I can't have it. So we need to be able to have the conversation where we ask ISPs whatever it takes to be able to have the service at the volume and the quality that the consumer needs. We need to be able to meet that need. And I know we'll come to that in a bit. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Now back to you, Abubakar. I mean, they've spoken. There are those there. You from cybersecurity side. What does the introduction of Starlink present to you on your domain or in your domain?
Well, first of all, I would say that one of our biggest headache as cybersecurity experts is downtimes. We don't like it. And downtimes can actually occur when there is an attack. Well, but then there are other downtimes that can also occur when ISPs are down, where you now have to resort to the protocols. It's not a pleasant issue at all to deal with. So now, what I would like to add on to what they've said rightly is that the emergence of Starlink should be an eye-opener to the ISPs. Why? They are in. We talk about the fact that the subscription rate is high, but then are we considering the fact that after the subscription rate, after the subscription, you have to pay a monthly data bundle, which is unlimited? Juxtapose that with what we are having currently. Our unlimited, that we call unlimited, is capped. It's a question. Secondly, we talk about unlimited, but then we are talking about a catchment area where you say, okay, I'm giving you unlimited, but then within a month, whether the data is still left or not, but you can still get access to it. Then Starlink comes in and says, okay, we are giving you a number of grace period. So these are the areas that I want local ISPs to now focus on. How can you take advantage of the emergence of Starlink and also make sure you improve on some of these things? It will help local ISPs a lot in ensuring that at the end of the day, they take control of the market. Now, a lot of institutions that some of the cybersecurity experts are dealing with have to talk of the fact that institutions are considering Starlink as a backup. Do you know what that means? it means they still consider local ISPs as their main option. So if they are considering it as the main option, do not give room for the backup that they are considering to become the main option, then you go into the backup. So that is the eye-opener that I would like to share here, and then also ensure that we up the game in ensuring that we strategically put in measures. So now, I remember some few years back, the sector ministry in collaboration with the National Communication Authority was talking about data offering from ISPs that have to be expiring, that it doesn't have to expire. I buy my data, I'm using it, then my data is not finished. Why should you say, okay, because today is 18th, your data is ended, so your bundle is off. This policy came in being. I realized that in some areas we have non-expiry data, but in some areas too, yes, of course, it's still been going on. So these are all the areas that I believe once local ISPs put much focus on is going to help. But I just want to assure them that definitely Starlink will come, but institutions, most institutions that we deal with are considering Starlink to be a backup. Then you should maintain your number one position by ensuring that you put in strategic measures. That is what I have to say.
All right, thank you so much. So I'll move on to George. George, what constitute the primary cost drivers for internet services in Ghana, and how can they be reduced?
Okay. When it comes to cost, especially with the local ISPs, what is looked at is the cost of the equipment that is actually used to set up the network. Now, the setting up a network connected to the internet backbone through fiber optics is very, very expensive. It is for this reason that we have underserved communities and underserved areas within Ghana. So one of the reasons for this cost is the expense that is met when the ISPs are trying to get the equipment for their infrastructure. Now, this particular issue, it can be solved if there is a collaboration between private and public institutions. Is that okay? So the private institutions will see it as an investment to invest into the infrastructure of this particular ISPs, so that they have a wider reach. And if the reach is wider, then the technologies such as Starlink and the other satellite technologies will become more of a redundancy than the actual go-to for internet connectivity.
Francis, in the early parts of this year, we all woke up to something that wasn't pleasant. So, for a very long time, most of us had to resort to SMS between that time. We were told that there were subsea cables damaged. What were some of the key lessons we learned from the 2024 internet disruption, and how prepared is Ghana to handle future occurrences?
All right, thank you so much. I think during those periods, I was just calling my senior brother here very often because he was very in contact with some of the stakeholders. So I think it was not a good thing for Ghana because usually I say Ghana being the first country in Africa to have internet, at least as of now, over 60 years, we should be prepared for certain, let me say, accidents. In Internet Society, we have what we call Internet Resilience Pulse, which we've done for many countries across the world. Ghana stands at 37% of our resilience. Our resilience is our ability of a network or to maintain its functionality in the event of, let me say, this fiber cut or any if you are still resilient. And Ghana stands at 37%. And in rating it, we use several factors. We use infrastructure, we use your security measures, we use performance, and we use how open your market is. So looking at the infrastructure, we look at your fiber reach, how Ghana, how which coverage we have in terms of fiber. We look at the cell towers. We look at a lot of things. When it comes to the security, we look at our DNSSEC. DNSSEC, we look at the signing and validation. We look at how many ISPs here have DNSSEC validation on their network. Because as of now, Ghana, our top tier GH has not been signed with DNSSEC. So what we can do is for encourage the ISPs to validate every feed that goes to their network, which I know most of our ISPs are not doing it with. So I would encourage them to do so. It was a testament that showed us that Ghana, we are not really prepared for such, such hits. And I know there were a lot of meetings with other stakeholders at NCA. And most of them were encouraged. One issue that was noticed that most of them were not connected to the exchange points, which is not so good, because once you're connected to the exchange point, it gives you a certain leverage for a number of time to be able to still be up on you as well. And going back to the internet resilience report, we noticed Ghana, we just have 2 exchange points here. I saw 3 on the internet, but the third one is non-existent. So I see the Ghana internet, I see the Accra internet points. For we need more than 2 exchange points, and it's a wake-up call for Ghana. To have more than just 2 exchange points which are working, and even connecting to the exchange point is another issue of discussion, which I'll use a lot of eyes who are not yet on the Ghana exchange point, because it's for our own good. Because we are here talking about the measures of style we're going to affect business. But if you are on the exchange point, you don't know, improve your resilience for yourself, and if you have good resilience, you are the fiber will not quickly move to Starlink. Also notice Ghana, we don't have copies of the global root service here. I think we have about 4. But to have a very quality and a very reliable, resilient internet, we need to host a copy of the root service. Someone will ask what's the copies of what's the root service. Global 13. So to be able to have a very sorry for that. All right, so to be able to have a very resilient internet, you need to have copies of those root services in your country. And Ghana, we have about 4, and I think we can do more. So let's have more copies of the global root service hosted in the country, because that one, if you want to search for data, you don't have to travel outside the continent for information, because you have a copy of the instance in the country. So you don't have to travel out. Once you make a query, because you have a copy in the country, you have just a copy. So it's even reduced the travel time, so reduce the cost of internet for you. And I noticed NCM made a lot of recommendations. I'll get onto the exchange point, but issue of compliance, after it was April. But let's ask the question, after those meetings, how many people have connected onto the exchange points?
Right. All right, I'll come to you, Abu, on this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I want Abu to respond to this one for me,
Okay, sure.
so that we'll get back to yours. What do you think ISPs can do to provide resilient internet for Ghana?
What I think ISPs can do to provide resilience in Ghana is, first of all, to ensure that they do more collaborations. We are talking about internet service providing, which is the gateway to the internet in the country. And then we are talking about major stakeholders in the country. That has to be, first of all, the internet service providers and key industry players. I listened keenly to Professor's statement wherever he mentioned resilient, he talked about security in addition. Because you can't talk about infrastructure, you can't talk about ensuring that you provide internet service to businesses, government institutions that are actually categorized under critical infrastructure, that you won't be considering partnering or collaborating with industry players. See, we have fine knowledge in the country right now. Once we are ensuring that we are localizing, we are ensuring the promotion of local ISPs, we should also, the local ISPs should also try to collaborate with local talented bodies that will be able to ensure that at the end of the day, we are achieving our mandate in the country. And the cybersecurity expert network, or the cybersecurity professionals, are one angle that we have to focus on. We also have institutions that are domestically, institutions that are providing cybersecurity services and cybersecurity initiatives and tools that we need to collaborate at the end of the day to ensure that we have this resilience that we are talking about. I think I will have to end here so that if there are any other things that my colleagues will have to add on. So
I want Afua to also tackle this for me, since you've spoken about collaboration, how the public and private sector partnership can strengthen Ghana's internet infrastructure.
Yeah, so I've championed in collaboration. I just came from ITW Africa in Nairobi, and one of the focus, conversations was all about collaboration, the need for us to collaborate on a regional level. So moving away from nationalistic, policies or work to more regional level collaborations, integrating our policies here and there. But when it comes to PPP, we've seen how PPP has transformed the infrastructure landscape in Ghana and across the continent. One good example is the Africa 50 infrastructure investment, which Ghana is a part of it. And through that, they've been able to partner with other private, ISPs or telcos, like through MTN groups, Baobab, etc., to drive the terrestrial cabling. So currently, they're looking at about 1.389 million kilometers terrestrial cabling. That's what they intend to do. They've only been able to achieve, as of now, about just around 934,000 kilometers, right? So there's some of the initiatives that PPP is fast tracking. And we've seen even the subsea cabling, these are all PPP initiatives. And so these are some of the ways that PPP is driving connectivity and helping Ghana stay connected. The government is doing a fantastic job. All governments, let me just clarify, is doing a fantastic job leveraging PPP partnerships via the African Development Bank and other institutions in the investment space to drive various infrastructure development. And so it's such an important space for, for driving development in our even when we talk of Starlink, for instance, Starlink, there's a part of it that could be considered as PPP, in the sense that the government had to re-look at the regulatory framework that allows satellite operators to exist in our market. So that was also a form of PPP that had to exist or to be enabled for Starlink to come and play in our market. So it's such a driving force when it comes to our infrastructure development. That's just what I would mention.
Derek, so we're talking about partnership here. Will the partnership between the private and then the public play a driving down role for the cost of internet access?
So I think, just to touch on what Ifa was just saying, the benefits of PPPs cannot be understated. Like, I was just trying to practicalize something, so I was just on the calculator doing something. Even if you're looking at a typical example like the Togo Africa project, the existing submarine cables being laid, and it's a consortium of about 8 different partners from Telecel, or let's say Telecel, Meta. There's Meta in there, there's MTN in there, quite a number of them. And I think that to build a kilometer of submarine cable, I think it's cost between 30 to 50,000 per kilometer. And that Togo Africa project is 45,000 kilometers. So that's close to about $2.3 billion, which is not money that is lying down for any single party to just roll out. So obviously, with partners coming together, they leverage resources, and that resources equally play out into the effectiveness of the project and everything related to their costs, which sometimes will play into the final cost that gets to the consumer. But I think PPPs are also very important, and they are not just had, for me, they shouldn't just be had at the national level. There's all these regional conversations that need to happen because I think one of the great things about this existing project, the Togo Africa project, is that unlike existing submarine cables that come through the very similar route, comes all the way from from Europe and goes to dock around South Africa, this particular submarine cable for the first time is going around the whole of Africa, which is a very important thing, because once you go around the whole continent, it means that if we have the cuts that we had, like the existing March cut in 2024, where the cables get cut, and then what literally happens is that it's like a long line this way. If I cut it, nothing happens anymore. But once it's around the continent, once it's going around the continent, if there's a cut, you can then reroute the service through the other side. So you can always go clockwise or anti-clockwise, which is a very important thing from the conversation of redundancy for the continent, and that's really going to improve the kind of experience that we've had over the years. But I also look at PPPs from the perspective also of R&D, where new generation networks, new innovations, and I think that PPPs are a very, very important lever in being able to help put together the right resources to be able to study and understudy and learn and unlearn some of the new things that are going to happen into the future. And I think for the continent, I think particularly Africa, we've been too much consumers of what's coming on from there. What if Starlink was developed in South Africa? What if Elon Musk never left South Africa? Would he be who he is today? So there's all of those conversations about our own cultural dynamics, how we enable innovation, how we support the development of innovation. If it's not coming from our people, we embrace it. But if it's coming from our own people, then there's all of these challenges associated with it. And I think that that's an area that we also need to look at. Thank you.
So in the room here, we have our own local ISPs, and we are promising you're going to hear from us very soon. Yeah. So the next discussion is going to be our names. You're going to mention our names from here. Yeah. I hope you're all with me, our ISPs here. Yeah, I mean, we're going to bring our own too very soon. Yeah. Right, so with this said and that, I think the first point you made was the cost. And when you go out there, that is what is happening. Can policy changes and regulatory reforms lower the cost of internet services in Ghana, F1?
Yes, it can. Right. So when we look at a typical country like Kenya, which Kenya has been able to transform its economy gradually. It's considered one of the digitalized economies in Africa. And they've been able to do that with some of the policy reforms that they've engineered. Even when we talk about data centers in Africa, they have the numbers when it comes to data centers in Africa. When we talk about collaboration amongst the Eastern African corridor, they've been able to do that leveraging on policies and reforms, right? And Kenya has one of the lowest cost of internet. I was in Kenya recently, and I was interacting with my Bolt drive. Everywhere I went to, I would just quickly ask them, can I use your Wi-Fi? Because I was not roaming on data. And they were quick to use it because it's so affordable. 30 GB costs less, 1 GB costs roughly around 16 cents, thereabouts. And so like 30 GB, you're looking at somewhere around top of mind, not even up to 20, right? Not even that. So it's relatively lower than that. It's very, very, very cheap there. And because they've been able to bring in place good policies, they've been able to make the playing field more attractive to investors to come in there, to invest in the economy, to have more players there. And so there's a competitive playing field. You can't overprice internet there. So there are more competitive players there. When you look, I mentioned data centers being the data centers is one of the factors that contribute to the cost of internet, right? Because the data centers, they're housing these servers, right? there's the energy that they consume, the cooling system. All of these variables contribute to the cost of running a data center, and these costs is passed on to these ISPs and of course to the consumer. Now, Kenya has been able to have more data centers in the space using green energy. I visited a data center run by IX, which is about 20 megawatts. That's a lot of power. But then they're on a sustainable side. So they're using green energy, geothermal energy. Let me correct that myself. Geothermal energy, which is a form of green energy, and other sustainable energy. And so it lowers the cost on data centers. And so the consumer is not burdened with that cost that ideally we in our parts of the world here are being burdened with, right? And so, yes, policies can improve that. You know, touching on what my colleague here mentioned, the cost of the equipment that are used, there are tariffs on them, there are taxes on them. These could be lowered to ensure that that high taxes that is then passed on to the consumer, it's almost non-existent. And so there's so many policies and reforms that all stakeholders, you know, working with government can transform to ensure that the internet that we need to operate our businesses, you know, drive AI conversations and various technology enablement is cheaper through these initiatives I just mentioned, you know, using Kenya, etc. as a blueprint.
All right, thank you very much. So we're tackling this one, and we're picking it from our cybersecurity angle. George, what are your thoughts and general thoughts around building a resilient internet ecosystem for business growth and continuity?
Okay. Usually when I start a talk, I always start with something. So let's take the US for instance. In the past US, there were 3 domains of warfare. We had the land, sea, then air. Then during the Cold War, there was space. Then between 1994 to 1996, cybersecurity was added. This is because even as at that time, they saw the importance of their internet ecosystem. So they decided to put in place cybersecurity to protect that particular infrastructure. So now, the infrastructure, developing the infrastructure alone is the core thing. That's true. But most of the time, security is always seen as an afterthought. So there are situations like what happened with IoT technology, where the particular idea was implemented, and when the idea was implemented, people used leverage on that particular idea and the devices that were on that particular network and brought down a large portion of the internet. Is that okay? So if you build an internet infrastructure or an internet ecosystem and it is not resilient meaning that it can stand the test of time, in case of any disaster or cyber attack in any form, it cannot resist it. You see that you are just pouring water into a bowl with holes within it. So I see that, as Professor rightfully mentioned, cybersecurity is one of the pillars that can be used to protect and maintain the resilient internet ecosystem after it is being successfully created. It has been successfully created.
Abu?
Yeah, I will tackle it from the policy angle. I think last time I heard the National Communication Authority boss talking about remedies that were put in place after the cable cut disaster. Now, some of the remedies include ensuring that they fine-tune or restructure disaster recovery frameworks for ISPs. And according to him, it was something that has been structured by all ISPs. But the question I ask is that, are there considerations with regards to risk accessibility going forward? He talks about afterthought. I want us to be proactive into having talking about considering prerequisites. Now, risk accessibility and disaster recovery or disaster management should be one of the key angles that should be handled by internet service providers. But this is a policy-driven agenda. It has to be in collaboration with the statutory bodies that will ensure that internet service providers adhere to some of these things so that we reduce downtimes and also ensure that we have a very resilient internet ecosystem for the country. I think once this is done, it will be a very strong agenda going forward in ensuring that we tackle the resilience that will ensure growth of business and also ensure that businesses keep on continuing in the right direction that we want to be.
Okay, Francis.
All right, so I'll just add a little to what my colleagues have said. I would say just invest more into cybersecurity because some of our ISPs, not just ISP organizations, onto their hits, they see cybersecurity to be very expensive. But until you have an attack, you know it's better to protect yourself than to wait to get an attack. And we should invest more in training cybersecurity experts because some organizations might not even have the expert to even remediate the attack very early until it escalates to a point you have to call in for help. So I think let's invest more and partnership too is very important because if we have the cybersecurity authority in the country, and I believe they're working on a sectorial set, and I don't know very well the plan for the ISPs, but if there are plans for the ISP as a sector set, they should link to the mother set and see so that at least they can receive advisory and support from them timely and to avoid these attacks. And I think, yes.
Derek, I want you to finish for me.
So I just wanted to touch on because everybody is going on the resilience part, I wanted to touch on what if I was government policy and how government policy, how regulatory policy can improve. I was having a bit of I don't know. Okay, yeah, we're being resilient here. We have about 3 microphones. Yeah, but I think on the issue of government policy, it's very, very important. It's something that cannot be overstated because this morning I've been having a rant, and it was because I had to send somebody 2,500 CDs, and I noticed I had to pay a service charge of 7.5 CDs and an e-levy charge of 24 CDs. And I just went like, whoa. So I'm paying service charge, which I understand I have to pay, but the one who didn't put infrastructure there, the one who didn't invest, the one who doesn't have staff, the one who is not doing promotions and branding, and the one who is not literally running a service is making almost 4 times what the one who did everything is. And that is a practical example of how government policy can destroy innovation. That's a typical example of how regulatory policy or government intervention into innovation can just hurt the growth of a sector. And it's very, very important because it spans around every single thing we do today. If you're doing business today, yesterday somebody flashed their duties for a 2020 RAV4, which is over 200,000. And I was like, now how much car is the car? And we all laughed over it. And it plays into everything. So if I'm an ISP today, and I'm having to bring in equipment, and I'm being faced with the same kind of custom duties, import duties, it will cut across every single level of the business, all the way from how I cook the service to how I bring it to market to come and service it or give it back to the customers. And it always plays into the end consumer because the ISP is not for my dad. He's definitely going to charge the right price that he believes can be able to enable him stay in business so that he can also take care of his costs and pay his people. So it's very, very important. Always we'll keep coming back year on year back, having the same kind of conversations. But then one government person or one person in power will just say, this one, let's put this on it, let's put that on it. And you find out that COVID had passed, and 3 years down the line, we're still charging COVID levy. Thank you.
So we'll come back for a different conversation on that one. For now, I'm dealing with ISPs. Right, so if we take the last one on this question, and then I'll invite Kobla Buame to come and then handle the Q&A, because I know you have some questions, and they are ready to give you the answers. My able ISP providers are here. Whatever question you have for us, we are ready for you. And as I said, get ready. You're going to hear our name very soon. So, Mr. Kwabena Boami, let's give him a round of applause as he comes to moderate it for us.
Thanks so much, Benjamin, for moderating the session. Whilst we're preparing for this particular panel, I didn't know that e-levy and then COVID tax is going to come in there. So that was a stronger note, at ending this particular session. But again, as Benjamin said, another session which will not be organized by GISPA will discuss COVID levy. But when you attend conferences, keynote speaker is speaking, panelists are speaking, you are scratching yourself, oh, I want to say something. There's something on my mind, oh, I can say it in a different way. Now, opportunity for only 3 people. Anything on your mind? I say, oh, the person who said, oh, I'll give you 2 chances. I've seen you. So I just want to ensure that we end within our planned time, but we can take as many as you have so that we can discuss and make it much more conversational. And so anything on your mind, not necessarily questions, but anything on your mind regarding the topic, empowering Ghana, building a resilient local internet ecosystem for business growth and continuity. If you think that somebody has promoted Starlink too much over yours, please pick the mic and promote yours too. So this is the time for us now. Anything on mind? Let me see the hands up. I've seen 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Usually the most important one is the first person to start. Towards the end, you see more hands, so I'm aware. Let me use the microphone, please. Right, so I'll start from here.
Thank you very much.
You may just want to identify yourself by name.
Okay, my
just
name...
so the camera can pick your face. Okay, if you just stand, and the camera will pick your face because we are online. Those who are joining online are also watching.
Thank you very much. I am Doreen Rahina Suleiman. I'm from Targeted Rights Initiative. My question is quite offbeat, but it's also important. So while we focus on cost, resilience, and security, are we not overlooking the issue of rich and reliable internet connectivity in the rural areas and other regions of Ghana?
Okay, you want a question to be answered from here? You can just choose one of them to answer. Of course, we have NCA also here. NCA is going to wrap up the entire session for us. So if you want the regulator NCA to answer, I can say, NCA, this is your question.
I guess I would leave you to select the person to answer for me.
All right. Okay. That's okay. Okay, the questions were noted. Right, I can come back to the panel. Anyone of you who wants to just take, yeah.
Okay. Apologies, I missed your name. But with regards to, we're not missing that point at all. If we remember, we mentioned the fact that Starlink enables the underserved to be connected. So that digital divide is catered for. But I'll just also go back to over 2 years ago, the government, via the NCA and working with the telcos, rolled out a national roaming agenda or policy which enables the underserved areas that have limited connectivity to stay connected. So I'm a Telecel user. I go to an area that, Telecel doesn't have connectivity there, but MTN does. I can latch onto MTN to stay connected. Those are some of the initiatives that have been, going on since then till now. Starlink gives also further enablement, connecting these underserved. I am very certain that the ISP, stakeholders and, of course, the telcos are working hand in hand to ensure that these underserved places stay connected. But you need to understand that it's an investment, and it needs to be justified. If I remember anything from my days in telco, is that these are justified based on data. And so you do a plot, and as particular, let's use my hometown, Achimakwaso. And there's very limited, number of 2G enabled handsets or 3G enabled handsets there. It's not a viable case to go into those spaces. And so that's why the satellite comes in, because the satellite doesn't need that, right? It doesn't need to lay fiber cables and all. It doesn't need to do. So it's such a viable opportunity for those underserved communities to be connected. And of course, the regulators are working hand in hand. I'm sure, again, apologies, I'm speaking on their behalf, are working hand in hand to create and enable an environment to attract more satellite operators to come into that domain, thereby allowing those underserved communities to stay connected. So we're not neglecting that conversation at all, because we're trying to drive a digital economy, and we can't leave anyone behind.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. I've been advised that we can take 5 questions or 5 comments in a row, after which we'll have response. So let me come to this area. Is there any question or any comments, general comments around the topic or anything of interest? Right. Let me take you, please. Just introduce yourself and you could go ahead.
My name is Frimpong Daniel. Okay, my name is Frimpong Daniel. My question is quick. So, how is the ISP ensuring the compliance of data protection? Because there have been some concerns in the public of data sharing. So, how are they ensuring that they don't share our data with unauthorized users? Thank you.
All right, data protection. We've invited them to be here. They would answer. Any other comment, questions? I saw some hands. Yes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Belinda. So I have a 2-in-1 actually. So my first question is regarding the collaboration. I think that was mentioned a lot. Collaboration amongst typically public and private sectors. But let's take the private sectors for instance. If you have 2 ISP that need to collaborate on creating resilience. So let's say ISP A relies on ISP B for resilience, some form of capacity for resilience. And there's an issue, let's say, of what happened in March. What measures or what ethics or let's say, policies have been put in place that could check them from not saying, okay, now, here's the case, both of us are in a hot soup. So if I'm relying on you for some form of redundancy, I'm not going to take that redundancy I've given to you away from you. So I wanted to know how realistically that collaboration can be done in the sense that when there's an issue where it's affecting both parties, one is not going to take that capacity from the other. And my second part of the question was regarding the cybersecurity. It's also on collaboration. How realistic is it for different ISPs? We all have different networks, right? How realistically can we collaborate to serve the nation in terms of cybersecurity? Because at the end of the day, we want the whole country to be secure. We don't want our security thing to be a thing. So how realistically can that collaboration be done between different ISPs with different networks?
Right, good questions. I go to my boss, Isaac.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Isaac. I work with Dolphin. I think for me, I'm not asking a question, but try to maybe contribute a bit. That's to do with what happened in March, the disruption that happened in March. I think for players in the space, what is happening is that there is some form of collaboration, just like my lady is saying. There's collaboration, which means that if a service provider is offering a service, you find a way of providing that redundancy by getting capacity from the other partner. Unfortunately, for the incident of March, I would say it's one-off. I think these cables have been running for all these years, not until March that we had this incident in Abidjan. There has been a couple of incidents towards the southern part of Africa, in South Africa. But the impact has not really been felt, because most of our traffic, we go for it up north, which is Europe. But then for the March incident happened in Abidjan, where the route to all of us going to Europe. But what did we do? Most of the providers found a way. The impact was there, but then within 2-3 days, I think we managed to stable. And then after, which means that we use other ways, other means to reach out to the capacity. So I'm saying this because there seems to be that perception as if the system was not really resilient until that. The system has been, and I think as players, we've been working with the NCA. What we've been doing, I think has been, and NCA has entreated every organization to find a way of buying capacity from other parties, which is what we've been doing. But this is, I would say, this is a natural disaster. And since then, there has been collaboration, a lot of things being done to make sure that we have a more resilient network. So the submarine system is the way forward, because the capacity driven by the submarine, there's no way we can run away from it. It is huge. And it provides a lot of interconnectivity. For instance, if you want to go from one country to the other, the submarine provides very, very short latency. I remember when I started working, we were having latencies for about maybe 300 or 400 milliseconds. Now, let's ask, you give a customer a service and he's telling you that the latency is more than 11 milliseconds, so he wants to run away. Why? Just because of this submarine system. So I'm telling you that what I'm saying is that I think I heard one of the panelists saying, when you look at some of the cables even go south. So when the incidents happen up north, we routed traffic through south to make sure that services were stable. All that I'm saying here is that it is not as if the players are relaxing, but there is a lot of effort going on, except that there should be more policy. The policy, we need to look at the policy, which we are working with the NCA. We are hoping that they will also support us, so that there will be policy to support our operation. But there's a lot of investment. My lady mentioned data center. The investment that goes into these infrastructures are so huge. So when we talk about price, there's so much that goes in there. I just want us to, this is just a small contribution, just to say that there's a lot that is going on. And Ghana, we are resilient. We have 4 of these cables, we now have 5. And even when the incident happened, we were able to resolve issues in this country. We provided internet for the country. And it's the reason some of the countries went down totally. But Ghana, we were able to withstand. So I want to say that we are not doing that bad like it's being presented. So that's my small contribution.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Indeed, I can confer on him as deputy keynote speaker for today's function. Right. Go ahead, David.
All right. Thank you, Komla. Yeah, so my name is Peter David Kokotoko. I work with Dynamic Data Solutions. Then I'm also on the board, right? I just have some few contributions, right? And I'll just pick a note from what Prof said. And this got to do with competition and then trying to avoid monopoly. Right. In my small econs that I know, is that when you champion monopoly, what happens is that it leads to price fixing, and it might lead to the disadvantage of users. And it can also put others out of business. Another dangerous part of monopoly could be oligopoly, right? Now, the comment here is that we have local ISPs. Some might not have a lot of capital. Some might have medium capital, and some might have high capital. Now, someone can come with a higher capital and has the propensity to kick them out. And that can happen. Now, what NCA and government are supposed to do is to ensure that there is a policy that will propel all companies, ISPs, to compete fairly. There shouldn't be any policy that will favor one ISP against the other to end up creating a monopoly or an oligopoly. Someone can come with a lot of financial muscle, kick an ISP that employs 200 workers. And these guys will lose their job, stay in the house. And this financial muscle guy is operating elsewhere. What happens? A lot of people have lost their jobs and they are staying home. Now, the other aspect, fixed prices, and that's a different thing together. I know there are players in the market, big, small, but my comment is that the NCA should ensure that there is a fair policy to ensure that all players are able to compete fairly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Indeed, it is on that score of a call of NCA that we've purposely reserved the NCA, contributions at this program to be the last. And so they would give us, if ISC will give us the final benediction and give everybody the assurance that one will not be promoted over the other. Prof, we'll come to you soon. Just so we can just keep within the time as I've mentioned, I'm going to go through now the panelists to just give their final words, and these final words would include responses to the questions you put to them, and after that, my colleague Benjamin would go through the rest of the program, and in the next 20-30 minutes, we are out of here. So please, panelists, now over to you whilst we wrap up the session.
Okay, I would like to tackle my sister's question on collaboration between the companies, especially the ISPs, to protect the cybersecurity. Now, you were speaking about the difference in networks. That is true, but the base infrastructure is still the same. So usually what happens is that we don't know what is going on until we have a conversation with people that are actually working for the ISPs. So I was fortunate enough, I think that was last week, to have a conversation with somebody that works with one of the ISPs. So what he told me was that when it comes to one of the key cybersecurity threats, the key cybersecurity areas that's being looked at is the DNSSEC, DNS security, that's the extension, correct? So in the past, that was as at last year, it was, when you are measuring the effectiveness of the DNS security of the country, it was 26%. Is that okay? But as at now, as we speak, if you are measuring the effectiveness, it's 96%. And this came about due to collaboration between this particular ISP, then the the GDNR, that's the Ghana Domain Name Service, what do you call it, collaboration. Is that okay? So there are actually collaborations going on to maintain the cybersecurity infrastructure of our internet ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think I'll also tackle from Frimpong. Frimpong asked a question regarding data protection. Well, the little education I would like to give here is that in the Data Protection Act, Article 28 clearly states that once you are a data processor and you are processing data, if the data is going to be utilized in any form, there need to be a consent. That means they need to inform you that we are handing over your data to this person. On Sunday, the Cybersecurity Aspect Association of Ghana, we usually have our monthly, we call it monthly situation meeting, and I'm glad to state that we have members present here, and of course, we have Abu Blay from the Inverted Global here, and a whole lot, Elias and Duncan and the rest. See, we had this conversation, and then we realized that it is a situation. And the situation is that we have instances where you do not consent to a subscription or an entity. However, you keep receiving information from them, thereby putting you in a wonder state that who actually gave this information to these people. So what we are doing is that at this point in time, what we can say is that it violates the act, but whoever is behind is the question now. All what we can find out is that there are some entities that even take data, process this data without even having certification from the Data Protection Commission. And that is where I need to ensure, I need to also educate and let us all understand that it is a concern. However, even the entity is trying to unravel the source of it. So whatever we'll be talking about will be based on speculations. But then we want to arrive at the concrete fact as to where the information is coming from. And there I throw to the internet service providers that in as much as we sign to a document from the Data Protection Commission, we should ensure that we abide by the tenancy that is stipulated in it. That if it is stated that you are processing data, maybe you as an entity, you are being protective. But then a weaker link is giving all this information out. I am saying this can be speculation. So it is now a tax on ISPs to ensure that the data that we are processing from all subscription points, we should ensure that we protect them in ensuring that people do not handle seriously
Currently, as we are in the political year, citizens keep receiving text messages of political parties or a politician or an MP trying to come to your constituency. And the question is that, how do they even know I am from constituency A or B? And how did I even receive some of this information? So at least we need to fine tune all these things. And I'm using this opportunity to charge NCA to start cracking the whip, so that once reports like this comes to the able NCA, you try to at least ascertain more information and try to crack the whip and seeing that it is done. Now,
1 minute.
1 minute. All right. All right. 1 minute. 1 minute on the collaboration that I'll have to quickly say is that, yes, we are talking about feasible collaborations. ISPs are deploying solutions and deploying services to customers. These customers are public, private institutions, businesses, and individuals. Now, the collaborations with cybersecurity professionals and cybersecurity service providers is that the collaboration will be done in such a way that we ensure we build capacity. So once we are building capacity and ensuring that we are training the users of the ISPs on the various vulnerability areas, then the end result is that they will build more confidence in subscribing to your services. So you are investing in capacity, and it's going to benefit you at the end of the day. And let's take charge of the fact that cybersecurity professionals, currently as we are speaking, we are role models, because the rating currently that we are having clearly page Ghana as a role model. And I'll have to use this opportunity. CSA is not here, but I'll have to use this opportunity to commend CSA and applaud them for that pragmatic measure they are putting in place in ensuring that today Ghana is now ranked as a role model by the Global Cybersecurity Index. The only place we just have to fix is the capacity building, and that is where we need to do that collaboration. People are subscribing. Weakest link. Sometimes, all right, 1 minute is up.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Because I control the microphone, so.
Abubakar said a lot, but in the spirit of diversity, being the only female, I'll try and touch on a few details here and there. You spoke about collaboration. I liked it, and also the contribution that he made. There was a lot of collaboration that happened when we had the subsea cable cut amongst the consortiums precisely. So Equinix or WIOC, right? They deployed their Quinix Fabric, which is a cloud computing server, routing service that allowed them to move capacity, which ideally would have been routed on these cable cards onto these cloud platform, and it allowed us to stay connected. So that was some form of collaboration that happened. In building resilience as well, that's the way we can build resilience. So investing in cloud routing is a viable solution. It's quite expensive, but it's a viable solution. So stakeholders in this domain need to consider that. Collaboration was very effective. That's it. And he says that it wasn't much. It was a serious problem. You're talking about the Red Sea cable cards. You're talking about SAT-3. You're talking about it has never happened before. This is out of our domain. This was a network or whatever natural disaster that caused it, right? We didn't anticipate that happening, because it does happen. These are things we can't actually factor in building resilience or building redundancy and then disaster recovery. But there's important aspect I'd like to mention, which is something that came up during the ITW, during conversations around the subsea cabling, building resilience around that, was the fact that most consortiums, when they started laying the cable, were just focused on the cost component of it. The redundancy cost conversations didn't come back, because of course it's very expensive. So the focus was always on how much does it cost us to lay these cables, not on the redundancy side. And so very few people factored in redundancy, engineer that into the operation, and the likes of Equinix did that. So they had an Equinix Fabric, which was a cloud solution that allowed them to be able to collaborate with all of these consortium that had this issue, to move their capacity onto their platform, to help us stay connected. So those are the ways that we collaboration allows us to to solve some of these issues. And so on the subject of resilience, it's important for all stakeholders to consider alternatives. You know, invest more in redundancy routing systems, and look at cloud solutions as a viable, option to have some form of data recovery and some form of disaster recovery in place should this ever happen again, because it could happen again. Nature has already told us that they could mess with our cables. So it's important for us to factor that into it. And of course, they're doing a fantastic job. All of the consortiums and stakeholders working along with government are doing a fantastic job. Even looking at options of terrestrial cabling. So that has been done. That's some of the collaboration that's been is happening in that domain. On the subject of data protection, they've all rightly said, but what I'll say is that many of these players are not taking it serious, or are flouting it, or not meeting compliance, because in-house they don't have a compliance team that understands the need to comply with data protection laws, right? And so you have the likes of Telecel that has a data governance team, which is part of their data and analytics center of excellence. You have MTN that has that. So the ISPs need to have internal data protection regulations, internally formulated, that ensures that they are meeting whatever NCA or whatever data protection agency has stipulated. You need to have that. You need to have a data governance policy framework in place that guides you on how you collect this data, how you retain them, how you dispose this of that. Most people don't have that in their operations, and so that's where the lag, and I'll use the opportunity to say that's where DS Consortium comes in. We handle data governance policy formulation, and so ISPs that want to ensure that they are adhering to what the data protection requirements are, and these data protection conversations, it's going regional. There is a data governance in Africa initiative that has been driven by AU, which all governments in Africa is being charged to drive. And so there's going to be a harmonized data protection amongst, on a regional level and a continental level. And so ISPs would need to take it seriously. You can't, without consent, use anybody's data for whatever reason whatsoever, whether political reason or whatsoever. You can't do that. And you can only ensure compliance when you have internal systems in place to check all of these things. So do reach out to DS Consortium if you need our services. We're more than happy to help you formulate those policies. Thank you.
I'll be writing you a check. So get ready for my check. I'll be writing you a check.
All right, thank you. I think Rahina did mention issue of meaningful connectivity and underserved communities. Okay, so I'll touch. I think have you ever been in a state you have internet connection, but you can't even open your email? Not to talk about video streaming. Yes, so I think yes. When through NCA, when we open up the market, we have more ISPs, and I would beseech NCA if they can give tax waiver for the smaller ISPs, so that they can maybe focus on the underserved community or the rural communities. That is when there will be competition. And probably if there are a lot of ISPs and your service is no good, I would quickly move to another one who's giving me a better service. And the issue of a collaboration and partnership. Usually if I'm working and I see people digging trench to lay fiber, I feel sad. Because I've said it over and over again. Ghana can have a centralized tunnel that we can pass every fiber through. Because as Ghana Water has, when they are demarcating place, they have a demarcation for road, for our pipe system, for electricity, and they have it, but not for internet. You see today, this MNO come and dig, tomorrow this one come and dig, and they don't even cover it very well. So I think with partnership, we can have a centralized tunnel, and one thing that make internet cost very expensive is infrastructure. So if probably they can partner to use the cell tower, they can partner to lay fiber across the country, because I know government through NITA is laying fiber. Most of the major MNOs are laying fiber. Why not come together to lay this fiber? It's going to reduce the cost, and it will have a ripple effect on the cost of data. So I think these are issues we have to look at. And to end with it, I think my very boss, Mr. Yiku, mentioned Ghana is doing very well. Yes, we are doing very well. But I remember those days in school, the very good students, they say there's more room for improvement. I just said South Africa has 12 subsea cables. Nigeria has about 7. That means Ghana, we can do more. So I think this a call for improvement. Let's open up and get more of the SAP cables coming to Ghana. And also, as I mentioned in my earlier submission, to have your internet being very resilient. Let's get more of the exchange points in the country. Let's establish, 2 is not enough. Let's get more of, invest more into our data centers. Let's get more data centers in the country, and let's get more of the root servers being hosted in the country, so that it's going to improve our resilience and reliability of internet in Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so since I'm the last person between you and lunch, or the last speaker, let me just say that I think it's been a great session. I think in trying to summarize some of the things that I just had, I think the point made by Afua about Equinox providing capacity, that was a perfect example of what collaborations are. Even existing, this wasn't even the point of a crisis, but currently, or let's say even since the last 7-8 years, telcos have even been in they've been doing things like fiber swaps. I have fiber in Tema, you have fiber in Dansoman. Give me a 5 kilometers here, give me 5 kilometers also on your own on this route. Then I don't necessarily have to come and build or come and cut the ground again. So we just literally share infrastructure in that regard. So that has been happening. In the last decade, I've seen examples of similar things. And with those ones, they are just general operational collaboration conversations that has nothing to do with the regulator, even though the regulator might have awareness of what's going on. So that also exists. But the point I wanted to make, for me, I think the final point which I wanted to make, which I think is significant, and I'll start by giving you a preamble. If you have 10 people to share a 10-slice pizza, and you have 2 people to share a 10-slice pizza, which one would you enjoy? Sorry? 2. 10 people. If you have 10 people to share a 10-slice pizza, and you have 2 people to share a 10-slice, 2. And I'm excited you are the one who is saying 2. And I'll give you an example why. So you make the perfect point about ISPs that are, some are crashing, some have low capacity, some have high capacity, or have high funding and all of that. And I was just smiling because, somewhere 2015, I think I was on my way to have I was driving on my way to have my honeymoon, and I was in Fujairah, which is one of the Emirates in Dubai, and the UAE, sorry. And I was listening to internet radio, and on that very day was when Busy 4G was launched. And the then Minister of Communications, Omane Boama, I remember very well, these were his words. Today we have launched a new telecom company. So what this means is that competition will go high, and when competition comes high, prices will go down. And I was driving, and we were listening to this thing, and I was laughing, driving around the beachlands. And you know what happened to Busy 4G. And it comes back to a point. Whilst they were all speaking, I was just trying to figure out how many ISPs do we have in Ghana? And I was doing a search. I noticed somewhere 6 years ago, this NCA had said that they had licensed 54. And I asked him, he said, no, he wasn't sure. And I asked him, he said, he wasn't sure, I'll check for you. He's not told me what the answer is. And then I decided to just check on ChatGPT. ChatGPT gave me 140. And I know there are quite a lot. And so that's why I asked the question, because obviously you get to the point where capacity doesn't make sense. Or, I mean, when we are too much, and we have to do something, it just doesn't make sense anymore from the economic standpoint. Because at the end of the day, there's a consumer on one side, and then there's the business on one side. Each one of these persons are important. We used to have a phrase where we say, the road builder is as important as the road user. So you want to get paid for building the road, and I also want to see the road being done right so I can also use it. Now, I don't know how many ISPs we have till now. Maybe NCA is here, they might tell us, but we just have, sometimes, for the want of a better word, too many service providers. And when we get to that point where we have too many service providers, to stay afloat becomes a problem. Starlink didn't collect money from anybody, but everybody is rushing there because they provide. So I think really it's a question of taking a careful look at the market and being able to address the specific needs of the market to be able to position yourself as a viable and prominent business within the space. So I do not see how the regulator today, although there's been some challenges in the past, like we saw first mover advantage with 4G being done with MTN a couple of years, let's say about 9 years ago, and we saw what the impact of that meant for the telecom space particularly. I'm sure same things have happened in the past, but it's important. that I do not see today how the regulator can be able to sustain businesses to operate if the business case is not there. Once the business case is not there, regulatory policy or government policy can do very but little to be able to sustain these businesses. So I think while we have all of these great conversations, one of the things I also intrigued GISPA to look into is that it's important we have a checklist of things that we discuss, so that when we come back next year, before we start having any conversations, we should be able to address how many of these checklists have we ticked. So then we know that we are making progress with these conversations, or else we'll come gather around, have friends amongst ourselves as conversations amongst ourselves as friends, and there's very little that will be done, particularly on the side that we do not control, which is the government and the regulatory side. Thank you very much. My name is Derek.
All right, a round of applause for our panelists. And before you go, we want to take a picture, so please, I want you to be outstanding while the cameras capture us all here. So if our cameramen and women are ready, this is your time. This is your time to reduce the cost for us. Please. All right. You are the new entrant into the market here. All right, thank you so much. A round of applause for our panelists. Kindly take your seats, and then once they do that, after listening to all their submissions, we are so happy because the regulator is in the house. Right, so once they take their seat, I will now invite, give us our closing remarks and by our special guest of honor for today's event. This special guest of honor is the Deputy Director General in charge of technical operations at the National Communications Authority, NCA. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've not clapped since we started this program, this is your time. This is your opportunity to clap, and we invite our special guest on stage to iron out all that has been said. Help me welcome Professor Isaac Osei.
Thank you and good afternoon, and apologies for shifting my speech to the end. Maybe it's all good, but I will not make any attempt at addressing the matters arising that had engulfed the last session. Fortunately, I have a prepared speech, so I would endeavor to stick to that. And if perchance it addresses some of the concerns, and then we take it from there. If not, we see what we can do on the side. So, to follow the protocols, I think special guest Professor J.J. Ponyo, Chief Executives of institutions present, Chief Executives and representatives of service providers present, our friends from the media, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is an honor to be here today representing the National Communications Authority, NCA, at this important Ghana Internet Conference 2024. The NCA is pleased to join this critical conversation on internet resilience in Ghana. In today's digital age, the resilience of our data and internet connectivity is not merely a choice, but a fundamental requirement for our national development. As we all know, Ghana's reliance on the internet continues to grow exponentially, reflecting global trends. Therefore, it is imperative for us to prioritize the stability, security, and resilience of our internet infrastructure. The timing of this conference is not coincidental. The utilization of the internet and data services has become pervasive across all sectors of our economy, from education and healthcare to agriculture, finance, and beyond. The discussions and outcomes should be implemented as we seek to safeguard our digital future. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as a regulator of the communications industry, I would like to highlight a few key roles of the NCA in facilitating a resilient ecosystem for businesses. First, develop regulations, policies, guidelines, and standards. First and foremost, under our mandate as stipulated in the NCA Act 769, the authority is charged with implementing national policies and developing best practices. The NCA plays a crucial role in the development of standards and guidelines related to internet services within the country. This encompasses a wide array of services, including submarine cables, 4G, broadband wireless access BWA, mobile services, internet service providers, ISPs, among others. Our goal is to effectively address the diverse range of issues that arise concerning the services we regulate. These policies are not just regulatory requirements, but provide the guiding principles necessary for service providers to enhance internet resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, these policies and guidelines are not developed in isolation. They are the result of collaborative efforts involving both internal and external stakeholders. This inclusive approach ensures that the policies we implement are comprehensive, relevant, and reflective of the needs of all parties involved. Moreover, the authority is committed to adopting international standards from the International Telecommunications Union, ITU, the West African Telecommunications Regulators Assembly, WATRA, and the African Telecommunications Union, ATU. By aligning our standards with international best practices, we can ensure that Ghana's internet infrastructure is robust, reliable, and capable of supporting our digital aspirations. Implementing awareness campaigns. As we are all aware, one of the critical drivers of the internet ecosystem is the consumer. It is in the best interest of everyone within the value chain if the consumer is well informed and educated about the digital services they use. The NCA, in accordance with the National Communications Act of 2008, holds a responsibility to protect the interest of consumers and users of communications network services. Given the rapid evolution of the industry, the NCA is actively involved in consumer education initiatives to foster a better understanding of consumer-related issues. These initiatives aim to empower consumers to make informed decisions about the services they use, thereby enhancing the overall resilience of our internet ecosystem. Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has become a critical concern for every nation, and Ghana is no exception. The NCA recognizes the profound impact of cybersecurity on the internet ecosystem and is taking proactive steps to address these challenges. The authority has established a dedicated cybersecurity division and a sectorial computer emergency response team set for the telecommunications sector. The primary purpose of these entities is to monitor, detect, and respond to cybersecurity threats and incidents. Our aim is to safeguard the integrity, confidentiality, and availability of our communications infrastructure. Licensing and type approval. Additionally, the authority is involved in the issue of licensing and certifies electronic equipment to ensure that they are safe for use and meet quality of service standards. This commitment is crucial as we strive to build a resilient internet infrastructure capable of withstanding potential threats. The importance of submarine cables. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to seize this opportunity to discuss the internet outage that occurred on March 14th. Do we all remember that day? I believe so. At least Isaac remembers. The value of submarine infrastructure was clearly demonstrated in Ghana during that outage. Before this event, only a few people were aware that the sea hosts vital infrastructure essential for digital communications. Today, most Ghanaians understand the significance of submarine cables and the critical role they play in our daily lives. No stakeholder in the communications sector wants a recurrence of the March 14 outage. The impact was felt across the board. Submarine operators, billions of dollars are invested in these infrastructures, and the cost of repairs are substantial. For consumers, we all witnessed the social media campaigns highlighting the frustration and inconvenience caused by the outage. Financial service providers. Financial transactions were halted, significantly affecting businesses and individuals alike. Utility service providers, their operations were also disrupted, demonstrating the wide-reaching impacts of internet connectivity failures. These are just a few examples of the widespread consequences. Although disruptions to undersea cables might seem rare, they do occur. This underscores the importance of seeking robust solutions, securing our infrastructure, and preparing for the unforeseen. Submarine cables are not just technological assets, they are vital for national development. They connect people, businesses, and societies across the globe. They enable the 3G, 4G, and 5G revolutions and all the opportunities these technologies bring. As we anticipate the launch of 5G services, the growing demand for bandwidth will continue to rise. Our increasing internet dependency will rely heavily on the resilience and reliability of submarine infrastructure. The NCA is fully aware of the potential for future failure events that may differ significantly from what we have experienced. Consequently, there is a need for comprehensive efforts across various industries. All stakeholders must work together to develop a framework that will critically address these issues and prevent the reoccurrence of such disruptions. Conversations such as the one we are having today are not only critical, but vital for our success. In conclusion, Let me express the authority's gratitude to the organizers of this conference, our shared desire to see our industry improve and grow in what has made the gathering possible. The collaborative spirit demonstrated here today is a testament to our collective commitment to building a resilient and prosperous digital future for Ghana. Let us seize this opportunity to make significant strides toward a resilient internet infrastructure that can withstand the test of time and adversity. Together, we can develop a robust framework that ensures uninterrupted connectivity and supports the continuous growth and development of our dear nation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Prof, for concluding for us. We want to say thank you. Another round of applause for Professor for us. Thank you very much.
Transform your business ideas into success stories with Telecel Business. Choose from a wide range of products and services tailor-made to drive your business. Call 0302-233-4040 or email to business@telecel.com.gh to sign up today. Telecel Business, connecting opportunities, connecting goals, connecting businesses. Telecel, connecting energies.
Thank you. Another round of applause for our sponsor for this year's edition. Now taking our closing remarks, announcements, and our various thank yous. Help me welcome the one and only Executive Secretary of Ghana Internet Service Providers Association, Mr. Koblan Boame, to give us the closing remarks.
Many thanks, Benjamin, for supporting us for this particular event. You gave me a good applause, but I this time want to ask all of you to applaud for yourselves for a very, good program we've had. At 10 a.m. when I stepped into this auditorium, we had less than 15 people. And I was wondering, will this auditorium be filled? If you look beside you, almost all seats are occupied. Thanks so much for making our day. And you've spared me a query from the president of GISPA that we organized a program and Telecel sponsored and nobody participated. But you are here and you have redeemed me. Thank you so much. Put a hands together for yourself, yes. The Ghana Internet Service Association, those of you who do not know what it stands for, all the ISPs in Ghana, at least those that are registered with NCA, are members of our association, and at the Secretariat we coordinate activities of these members. And so those logos you see right there and here, these are the members of GISPA. GISPA also, as the president mentioned earlier, operates and owns the Ghana Internet Exchange. And that is one of the points that Prof made mention of in his speech, that when the issue happened earlier in March, for those who were peering at the exchange, they had some kind of safety, and they could still provide internet for us in Ghana. And so if you're an RSP, if you are a critical service provider in Ghana, Bank of Ghana, Ghana Water, UCG, and all those ones, and you are not yet at the exchange, please, you are doing yourself. This is a time for me to advertise for the exchange. That get onto the exchange, get to us in our office, and ensure that you just pick up a form straightforward the same day we can connect you. The GISPA office is at Roman Ridge. If you get to Roman Ridge, ask of Anpoma House on the second floor, you can see the association secretariat. But I want to thank all of you, particularly our keynote speaker, Prof. JJ Ponyo. He's been in town since yesterday for this year's event, and he's done so much justice. When he was presenting here, I wish I could go and register a course in KNUST and sit under his tutelage as my professor. Thank you so much. Put your hands together for Prof. for that insightful presentation. Of course, I want to thank the president. In fact, in this particular auditorium, there's one president, His Excellency Michael Nfujo, the president and the board chairman for GISPA. He's been chairing all of our activities, and through his foresight, he said this year, this event must happen. Indeed, we started the Ghana Internet Conferences 5 years ago. Last year we missed because of some challenges, but this year, thanks to the president, we are able to put all of you together for this particular ceremony. Thank you so much, Michael. Of course, having mentioned the president, he works with some board members, and so board members of GISPA, thank you so much also for all the support we've received from you to this particular point. I see two of them seated at the last, they've been introduced already, but just for emphasis, thank you so much, David, thank you so much, Isaac, for all the support we continue to get from you. Our panelists, it's been so much exciting to have you here. Many of you, it was last minute, but you say, okay, I will be here, and thank you so much. Particularly Ifwa has traveled all the way from Kenya on her own ticket. In fact, Telesa didn't pay for a ticket. So Telesa, okay, you are seated beside her, Telesa. So, and she has a return flight right from here, all on her own. So she paid her own in and out flight just to come here to participate in this particular event. Please put your hands together for Ifwa and all members of the panel. Thank you so much. And of course, there's an ex-president here, Richie Densu. Indeed, the idea of Ghana Internet Conferences started when Mr. Densu, or Engineer Densu, he likes the title Engineer, Engineer Densu, when he was the president chairman for GISPA, and through his thoughtfulness, the board, asked that we have this annual event. And so thank you so much, ex-president. He's not contesting again. He's an ex-president, but he's not contesting again to be the president. And so thank you so much for all the support we have received from you. Our key partner at NCA. NCA has been tremendous in all the partnership. Indeed, this year in March, when we have that disruption, almost every time they invite us to participate in meetings to see how the association can contribute to thought leadership in terms of how they can, come over that. And so NCA, we are super, super excited. We've tried several times to get in previous events. We've had some panelists, but this year is a high that we've had yourself here to, participate in this event. We are super excited. Thank you so much that you made a time to be here. Of course, we've given all the publicity to Telecel Wholesale because they have been our key sponsor for this year's. Just to appreciate them again, let's play that 1 minute video again for them. They gave us a lot of money. Let's play that 1 minute video for them again as a thank you to Telecel. I'm using this to lobby you to pay more next year. I'm giving you more slots so I can get more money from you next year. So play this for you one more time.
Transform your business ideas into success stories with Telecel Business. Choose from a wide range of products and services tailor-made to drive your business. Call 0302-233-4040 or email to business@telecel.com.gh to sign up today. Telecel Business, connecting opportunities, connecting goals.
Thank you so much.
Connecting businesses.
All right, so the Ghana Internet Conference is an annual conference. What we do is that once we kick start with a conference like this, the conference continues throughout the year. And so we may have some other events in the course of the year discussing the same theme. I'm sure many of you still have very interesting points of discussion that you want us to bring up within this particular theme. We'll give you invitation in the course of the year, and after that, next year again, we shall all be gathered here again for the 5th edition of the Ghana Internet Conference, which will be in 2025. God will give us all life, and we shall be here in the same energy. Amen. Having said amen, I was going to take offering, but instead of the offering, just to announce that when we step out, there's going to be refreshment for everybody. Just get to the same places that you registered in coming. Instead of you now registering to come in, now just pick a pack and then just go and say thank you for how much you've been so much supportive to us for this particular year's conference. Put your hands together for me now as I step out and invite the FC to close the session.
All right, thank you so much. So I was just confirming with Mr. Boami about Telecel's 20% promotion. Yeah, so those who were not here earlier on, they said they have no promotion. 20% for all the services. So I'm the very first beneficiary of that. So I wanted to confirm and get that. So, on that note, we want to say we've come to an end of the 4th edition of Ghana Internet Conference 2024. But before we do that, we want to take some pictures, and then I'll ask my guy to help me bring the chairs down. Yes. Right. Okay. Right. So we're going to help us with